You're strong.
I know.
It's okay. I've got you now.
Just like in the movies.
Welcome to SuperWonder Legacy, the only show that knows that Kryptonians and Amazons go together like peanut butter and jelly. I'm Jared. I'm here with Britt. What's up, Britt?
Hey.
Yeah, I decided to go with a not anti-Lois Lane intro for this one, just for hex and giggles. So today we are talking about the Trinity, as it says below down here. So, who are the Trinity? Britt, explain.
All right. So the Trinity is Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. Basically, these the most popular heroes in DC. Wonder Woman as the first superheroine, and Superman is the first hero, and then Batman. I mean, he's just like
He's just
DC's
Batman.
cash cow. Yeah.
Yes, he is.
They've been around for since the Golden Age, so they're the longest running characters. And I mean, that's pretty much simply why they are the Trinity. But what we will explain is like basically where did the Trinity come from and how it's not that deep.
Oh, well, it's never that deep when it comes to DC, trust me. So
Yeah.
let's get to it. So we've got, all right, so when did the Trinity start and why?
All right, so well, actually, the start of the Trinity is basically in the 2000s.
Yeah.
So, it really, for the why, is just because they are the most popular characters, being on in the Justice League and the Justice Society. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's not really very much a profound reason why they are the Trinity, other than they're just the three longest running characters and happen to be, the most popular.
Which it's interesting because here's why Wonder Woman being included in the Trinity is infuriating. It has nothing to do with her. It has something to do with DC never gives her the respect she deserves, like in terms of they never put competent creatives on her. Which, by the way, I will say, I read Tom King's Wonder Woman issue 1. While it can be heavy-handed at certain parts, it's actually pretty decent.
I mean, well, I've seen some people say the Trinity, quote unquote, was basically like Batman, Robin, and Superman. Because Batman and Robin was really the dynamic duo at first, and then with the world finest of Batman and Superman, then that became a team.
Mhm.
You had I think it was Flash, Green Lantern, and Wonder Woman or Aquaman at some point. It's kind of like a team. You can tell like certain characters teamed up a little bit, but the Golden Age they really just stayed separated.
Mhm.
Um, it was kind of like a high and by. Yeah, we're a team, but we don't know each other personally.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, because I remember, like, yeah, it wasn't really until the Golden Age that I think, and you can correct me on this, that the DC universe started to, like, really become solidified, because before it was just a couple of different characters in their own books, right?
Yes, because in I think it was in one issue of Wonder Woman, Superman. Well, it was a man that was dressed as Superman, and because at that time, the shared universe wasn't exactly established just yet, it was just like he was just in costume. It was Sensation Comics issue 33 in 1944, and yeah, this man was dressed as Superman, and that was it. That was the only pretty much tease with them, being together.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, if you don't have like if you didn't have any other type teases, that's why the shared universe just wasn't quite established yet.
Ah, sweet. So moving on to the next. So we have here. It's a recent thing. Wait, go back. It's a recent thing, but yeah, it is rooted in the Golden Age because all these three characters are Golden Age characters, and like we've said, these are three characters that have consistently worked together forever. So next we have now. Why doesn't the Trinity work, Britt?
Because, well, you started off with saying that Wonder Woman doesn't get treated as an equal, and that's what she's supposed to be. She's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be pretty much an equal to Superman, but she isn't. As far as her powers, as far as the writing, the creative decisions for her character, um, her relationships or anything like that. It just doesn't, come together. Like I said, Batman and Superman, they have the world's finest. They've had multiple team up titles, for the longest of time. Um, Superman and Wonder Woman has been a team, but they didn't get their own team up, title until New 52. And then Batman and Wonder Woman, I was honestly surprised because when people say the Trinity now, it's a lot of revisionisms with saying that they've always been friends, always been close, but to see the breakdown of these relationships dynamics, that Batman and Wonder Woman weren't close at all. Like, no, it
Because no
was,
one can be close to Bruce. There is that.
yeah. And even with being close to Superman, it's kind of like, they were friends. I don't really know why, because well, I guess that Batman in the Golden Age and Silver Age, era, he was likable. He was friendlier, so yeah, so they could be friends. But during post crisis, though, when everything was rebooted and just trying to change things up, Superman and Batman weren't friends. They were pretty much rivals and everything like that. So yeah, so they really don't have any type of consistency to be the Trinity at all. They don't have any type of consistency to even be friends most of the time. They have a separation. Like I said, Superman and Batman can be friends, rivals. They can have that relationship. Superman and Wonder Woman, they have their friends with unresolved feelings or romantic relationship. And then Batman and Wonder Woman, they really don't have anything in common other than just being friends with Superman. Or, pretty much
And
Superman is actually the only tie.
and before all you people start spamming Wonderbat in the chat, just remember the truth hurts, right? The truth hurts.
Right.
So tell me about the Golden Age.
Okay, so the Golden Age is pretty much, yeah, this is the start of all the heroes and everything like that. But again, they didn't know each other personally. They just knew them by their heroic names: Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, Aquaman, stuff like that. That's it. Like I said, the only appearance of being in each other's book I mean, I guess you can count that, was the man dressed as Superman at the party. But that was pretty much it for the Golden Age.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong. So Wonder Woman, actually, here's the funny part. When I first got into comics and I started looking at the history of like Wonder Woman, she actually started in her first appearance is a backup story in Justice Society in I think All Star Comics. It wasn't like with like with like Superman and Batman, where like they were like the cover story, if you will, of their comics. No, she was a backup character.
Yeah, she was okay. Actually, you're right. She was actually the secretary too.
Oh
She was
yeah,
like
that's true.
considered the secretary. And Superman and Batman, they were popular like on their own. So they were pretty much honorary members of the Justice League or Justice Society. So it was kind of like they weren't really a team. And yeah, reducing her to a secretary, it was like, wow, that's
Well,
very,
let's not forget this was the 40s and the 50s. So
yeah, yeah.
moving
I
on. So
mean,
then we get to what is quite possibly the weirdest age of comics. Because remember, the Silver Age is where you have Superman dragging a solar system behind him on a freaking chain.
and isn't this the super dickery era too?
The super what?
Dickery. When he's like gaslighting Lois and stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh
Like
yeah.
all of that. Yeah. That wow. I mean, this is an era where it's still pretty much everyone is separated. Um Superman and Batman are still popular characters on their own. Wonder Woman is still basically she has her own independent, comic and everything, but it's not getting the attention she needs. So the only reference of Superman is actually in 1962, and you see the pattern of Superman being featured in Wonder Woman comics, not,
Mm-hmm.
When Steve is being a jerk to her, so she goes on a date with Superman.
Yeah, she's like,
That was,
suck it.
yeah. And then you have the Super Friends with the Wonder Twins, Batman and Robin,
And jokey Aquaman.
yeah, and Superman and Wonder Woman are mostly teamed up, and she actually, uses Superman as like her taxi. I guess at that time she didn't fly. She only
I think
used
she did though. That's the thing.
Yeah, I'm sort of, she flew at some points, and then she had the invisible jet, but then she used Superman as like a taxi and
Well, Britt,
flew on his
here's
shoulder.
what you have to realize: if we're going off the assumption that Wonder Woman has romantic feelings for Superman, it makes sense that she'd be like, "I know I could fly, but I'd rather have you carry me, sir."
Right. So yeah, so that's pretty cute to me. So I don't mind that.
I
And
love the way
then
he's carrying her too. It's not like he's carrying her like this. He's like, no, hang out on my arm. And by the way, that boomerang logo is giving me massive nostalgia right now. That's how old I
yeah,
am. I'm like, oh, geez.
I mean, yeah, cartoons have changed. So, but that's a totally different topic. But yeah, that really did bring back, so many memories.
Was this also the period or so when you also had the Ruby Sears animated Superman cartoon?
Yes, I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. So even with that,
Mm-hmm.
I forgot the title of that episode, but yeah, Superman and Wonder Woman did have a team up with that, and that's when I know at the end she does give him a kiss on the cheek and like right in front of Hippolyta,
And I
and he
love how he
says,
just flies off like, woohoo!
yeah, and he says like, your daughter and I make a great team, that,
We know, Clark. We know.
right. But yeah, again with the whole pattern of Superman and Wonder Woman being a team, Batman and Superman basically being a team in comics and just separated, and then still nothing really um, substantial or whatever with Batman and Wonder Woman's dynamic.
And by the way, the title of that Ruby Sears Superman episode is Superman and Wonder Woman versus the Sorceress of Time / the Birthday Party.
Oh, cute.
So there you go. We may have to do a review of that episode sometimes. But anyway, so moving on. Then we get to the Bronze Age and post-crisis, which, yeah, I love how you brought up the what do you get for the man who has everything moment in there. That's always been like one of my favorites. And the part that, by the way, this has been used by fan fiction writers since like so long as scenes in like every SuperWonder fanfic. Somehow this story always ends up being represented in some fashion.
I mean, because really the kiss is kind of like they're supposed to be friends, but then
Yeah, I know. I'm like, it was kind of funny when DC is like, oh no, don't worry, they're just really close friends. Then why are they making out practically every time they're together?
yeah, it was going back, I think, to pre-crisis actually was the Superman and Wonder Woman or DC Presents 32, and it was like that was sort of hinting of them being an inevitable couple, but there's like no, we can't be, a couple, but we want to and everything like that. So this comes forward within post Bronze Age and post crisis of this. It's like they kiss, but then it's the next panel says, well, why don't we do this more often? And it's like, well, it'd be too predictable. It's like, well, I mean, them being with their, the love interest or whatever, that's predictable. So yeah, this is obvious and predictable in a sense of it just makes sense.
Well,
There's
it's like, wait
nothing
a
wrong with
second.
that.
I had this conversation with someone on Twitter that you actually commented, and you're like, you're still talking, and it was like, all right, so speaking of the whole thing, it's predictable. When Lois Lane is in danger, that's the most predictable thing ever. I wonder if Superman's going to save her.
Right. Actually, yeah, the main love interest and everything, that's the most predictable thing there is, because that is their role. So when you have Superman and Wonder Woman as separate franchises and they come together, I mean, Wonder Woman's creation was pretty much as the female counterpart to Superman. So, I mean, you're going against that. She was basically a match for him. Um, I believe in an article from 1942 when Wonder Woman was debuting. In within the article, it was saying how it was like a thought, anticipation of if these two characters can interact together, how would that be? So it's been there since the 40s and has, progressed all through the decades. So yeah, with this, it's kind of like Superman and Lois can be, I don't know, they can say that they belong together because that's how it's been. That's the tradition, and it's nothing wrong with that. Wonder Woman and Steve, I mean, their relationship is just
Shallow?
so very much so. I mean, he's the first man she met as like a Disney princess, and that's it. He doesn't add really much to her character after she leaves the island. Um, like we discussed previously, he's just her like ticket, you know, giving her a way out to say, well, I'm taking this outsider, from the island back home. And at the same time, I get to explore the man's world. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much why I also prefer him as an older man, because it's kind of like he's older. Her motivation isn't because she's fallen in love with him. Or, infatuated or curious like that. She's just trying to help someone get back home.
Plus, wasn't her new 52 Secret Origin thing that like she was like, great, away off the island?
Yeah. Perez and New 52 was basically using that, just someone to help me get off the island, but I'm just taking him home. Other than that, the relationship itself, yeah, it was basically dead on arrival, I would say, because there's no depth to it at all.
Well, plus it doesn't help that they made Steve a stalker. So anyway, This okay, so it's kind of funny whenever I see this image from John Byrne's Man of Steel, I get a little bit like peeved because I remember the bait and switch that this was because they're like, okay, so let's go on a date. Then they go on a date, they're like, okay, this won't work, and I'm like, thanks, Byrne. I see what you're doing there.
So so with that, so with that, um, Byrne, he basically wanted to take away Superman uh immigrant
Hmm.
roots. He wanted him to be quote unquote human, more like he doesn't care for his otherworldliness. So being with Diana, of course, that is something that he has to acknowledge being with her because that is his full truth. But um he's more like he's supposed to be like a person that moves forward, but actually Byrne wanted him to um, protect this like stagnant status quo of America. He wanted him to be this American symbol in a in the wrong ways of human acceptance of I I am American, regardless of where I came from. This is bad. Like he made um Krypton pretty much desolate in a sense. Like no true life. It just seemed so cold. But Earth, America is like the greatest ever. So
Of
yeah,
course.
so that's pretty much. And then he also basically turned Clark into a chicken. You know,
Yeah.
he felt like he wasn't good enough for Diana anyway, and that also played with his dynamic with Batman too. It was like they became enemies. So yeah, so post crisis, I know that a lot of people. It was a long time. I think like 25 years of post crisis, and that is DC's main um, generation or whatever of fans. But when you really analyze it, it's very problematic and very, you know, it takes away so much of the depth of these characters. And the view, especially of Superman, is so just watered down. If you even try to acknowledge his alien roots, it's like, no, you're not a fan. You don't know Superman at all. It's kind of like, okay, you don't know Superman because he wouldn't be Superman or whatever. He wouldn't have the powers
You wouldn't be
if he wasn't
super.
from, yeah, if he wasn't from Krypton. He wears the insignia on his chest. His
Yeah,
family,
that's literally his family symbol for hope. I'm pretty sure he has to acknowledge his Kryptonian heritage.
yeah. So I mean, it's just very much a backwards way of thinking. But yeah, post crisis, this era really is very questionable. And like you said, the bait and switch of Clark and Diana's relationship of they were attracted to each other, had this one weird date. It failed. They decided to be friends, but had unresolved feelings.
And then
Um,
Britt, you're forgetting this is the period where Immortal Beloved happened. And talk about bait and switches.
Oh, yes. So that is going to be brought up later on because that's part of the dynamics trying to warp warp them to make the Trinity work.
Hmm.
Um, you have against Superman and Batman being still, whether they were rivals, enemies or whatever, frenemies, or they were actually friends, they still had their dynamic and were still able to have team ups, consistently. Superman and Wonder Woman, they had their unresolved feelings and everything, but with the marriage to Lois and everything like that, they sort of became separated. Um, Superman was only sort of featured in her books for a while, and when they became best friends, it was like that was only acknowledged in Wonder Woman's books. Superman, he became sort of limited, especially for her, because of course, with the Lois marriage, you can't have Wonder Woman, in the books overshadowing her or calling him her best friend, exploring their unresolved feelings and everything like that. And you still have Batman and Wonder Woman not having very much of a dynamic, even through this post crisis. They've had not even too much of team ups either. Still,
Mm-hmm. So following up, we have the 90s and beyond, and then we get Kingdom Come, which was like I say this every time we mention Kingdom Come because it's always true. This is like one of the best DC books ever. And fun fact, so when this book came out, there was no DC multiverse. So when this book came out, this was the future of the DC universe. So in other words, it's kind of funny when you phrase it like that. It's like DC is saying Superman and Wonder Woman are destined to be together eventually.
right. Oh, and going back to the Midsummer
Mm-hmm.
panel.
Yeah, go ahead.
So within that story, Superman and Batman, well, everyone is has amnesia, and they have to get their memory back. Superman and Batman, they work together to help each leaguer. Batman, he goes to Aquaman and he dumps his head in water.
Of course. That's the most Batman thing to do.
He just like, it's like, just you can breathe, just remember. It's like basically throwing a baby out in the
Remember how
water
you
and like
breathe as I
swim.
waterboard you.
Yeah. But Superman and Wonder Woman, she is a teacher at an academy, and Clark goes to visit her, and he says, it sounds like a pickup line. He's like, I'm here for personal reasons. So she has a trophy or something in her hand, and she like crushes it, and it scares her or surprises her, and he's like, you can feel it too, that you're different. So he goes to the balcony and he's basically like, just trust me, remember, we are different, just trust me, take my hand, and we can fly together. So I love these panels because they're supposed to be friendly, but they have such a romantic vibe of, she's like,
Yeah, I'm
how can
sorry. The
she,
way they're looking at each other right here, that is very romantic. That
and she
ain't
calls him,
friendly.
yeah, and she calls him, he says, you can trust me, you can. And then once she trusts him and they smile at each other and she says, hello, Cal, it's like, yes, she has her memory back, just at that moment of taking his hand. That is something that's very deep and
Hmm.
shows their connection. That even with all the trying to have their, I guess, relationship, a little distant because of the status quo of the marriage and everything, they still have these moments.
Hmm. So Kingdom Come, and again, it seems DC was trying to tell us they're always eventually going to be together.
Right. So, yeah, Kingdom Come was basically, we all know that the heroes are going against each other because the Joker, bombed everything. The humanity basically turned their backs against Superman. He went into retirement for 10 years or so, and it was like, you know, the world doesn't want me anymore, so I'm just gonna be in seclusion. Um, Diana, she never gave up on him at all. She wanted him to come back and be the leader, be the hero that the world needed. She was frustrated with her own um, misgivings and failures and everything, but she kept fighting, and that's what elevated her, because she was this. A lot of people, well, antis are like, Kingdom Come basically was the root of the warrior, more warrior woman of Wonder Woman. And it's like, well, within the context of this story, she was supposed to be, because she was frustrated. And the story is dark and dramatic is, full of conflict
Well,
and everything.
the other thing is actually that one of the things antis always say is that she takes him away from humanity. And the funny part is that it's literally Diana who shows up on the holographic farm and tells Clark, you have to come back to humanity.
Right. That that is what gets me, is that just because that's the thing. Because she calls him Cal, because she
Well,
lets
actually,
him,
she calls him Clark at first, but he makes her call him Cal.
yeah, she is basically, she knows his truth. She calls him Clark or Cal. Either way, she knows him as just one man. So just a name she really uses doesn't really matter to her. Um, Cal is pretty much the name that has become an endearment more
Mm-hmm.
for her, because it is honoring who he really is honoring his culture. But um, I think it was still the DC Presents Superman and Wonder Woman 32 was when they were under the spell of Eros, and she calls him Cal, and he says, "Oh my God, like you were calling me by my by my Kryptonian name, like you are falling in love with me." So it's like we have to, um, get
I
rid of
gotta
this
go to
spell of Eros.
divorce Lois.
So it really became an endearment. So just because she calls him that, that's not taking him away from humanity. It's
Yeah.
actually just honoring who he is as an alien, his heritage. That's it. If you are saying that humanity is only being a mortal human, I mean, that's pretty much
Extremely shallow, first off.
extremely shallow, uh, racist and
Mm-hmm.
xenophobic, because what Superman represents as a Kryptonian, you're basically, and even Diana as an Amazon, as outsiders, they are representing culture. So we as mortals are of different cultures. So for you to say that humanity is only American, you know, that is that undermines other cultures, from different parts of the world.
By
And
the way, can I say my favorite part about this panel right here is because they walk into the restaurant that's like Planet Krypton, it's like Planet Hollywood, but the person that the greeter is dressed like Superman, so Wonder Woman just looks at him and goes, "Be nice, Clark."
that's because he has the mullet
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
the
And
long
he's
hair.
like, I like to think that that at that moment, because obviously Soups doesn't have it, he thought, "Man, I'm glad I got rid of that mullet."
Yeah, it's kind of like, now seeing myself like this, it's like, oh wow, this is not good. Like this was not a good look. And yeah, but even that is so much of a human, if you want to say a human moment.
Mhm.
Um, Throughout this whole story, it's very much a human moment of, um, just because they're superheroes have powers, they still have feelings. And I think that a lot of people, um, they have a very limited, narrow-minded, and surface level view.
Yep.
Even within New 52, Clark and Diana, they went, um, basically club hopping. You know,
Oh, I
that
love
was,
that one. It's at the end of volume one, I think.
yeah, in issue 7. That's all Diana wanted to do. She wanted to eat ice cream. She wanted to eat, different foods. She
Yeah,
wanted
love that.
to go
It's mine
dance.
too.
She wanted to go dancing. You know, that's it. Just and flying. I mean, you do. We do. Mortals do activity all the time. Their activity is going flying.
Plus,
You know,
you
but
can't tell me that if you're someone that can fly and you're dating another person that can fly, you can't tell me a date is not going to involve you guys using your powers together. I'm sorry, that's not going to work.
the double standard of that um is Lois and Clark or Superman, when he carries Lois and tries to go flying with her. And it's like, well, that's when the questions come in, is that, isn't it too cold? You can't go too far, um, or she'll, lose, she can't breathe or something like that.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like Clark and Diana, they can go in outer space and they can, look at the moon or go to other planets. But you
Wasn't
see,
wasn't that a variant cover of New 52 Superman and Wonder Woman where they're taking a selfie on the moon?
they were taking a selfie. It was just in the clouds.
Oh, okay. I think someone photoshopped it into the moon.
Yeah. And then there's another one with Darwin Cook. They were having like a little picnic,
Oh,
and it
yeah.
looked like on a different planet. Yeah. But with Lois, it's like they have her in an astronaut suit, and you
Mhm.
really can't tell. You really can't tell that it's her. So you want these type of unique, um extraordinary moments, but you have her in an astronaut suit. That's not really romantic or enjoyable. You have her being carried all the time if he wants to fly. I mean, that isn't so much romantic to me than when Superman and Wonder Woman, you see them as equals. They can fly on their own together.
And that's
You
an
don't have to
image.
worry about.
And that's an image later in the slideshow. But the one time where I call BS and the whole Lois Lane thing was when in the Superman, in the Christopher Reeves movie, where they're flying and he's like side by side and she's like flying alongside him, even though they're like this. And I'm like, that
Yeah,
wouldn't work.
that wouldn't. I
I get the feeling they were going for, but not when I'm watching it nowadays, I'm like, um,
Yeah, it's a lot of pretty much jumping the shark, or contrivances with trying to make that pairing works. Um, but yeah, with this, you see that with Kingdom Come, you see that with Mark Waid, he said that this story is a cautionary tale. And yes, it is. But at the same time, it has a very, promising ending.
mhm.
And that's the problem with superhero stories, just the whole genre nowadays, is that they want to water it down. They don't want to go through conflicts. It's like you have to know that even if it is a conflict, it can be resolved. You
Mhm.
know that it's going to be resolved in such an easy manner that no one is going to actually be hurt. There's no actual casualty or conflict or anything like that. Um, like with the events that DC has had so far, Dark Crisis. I mean, you call it Dark Crisis, but not much of darkness came about
It's
with it.
because the enemy they're fighting is called the Great Darkness. I remember they later retitled it to Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths.
And I mean, that wasn't really any infinite anything.
Mhm.
Even the Infinite Frontier, uh, that era, it wasn't it wasn't a lot of infinites going
Mhm.
on at all. It was very limited, actually. Yeah, so these stories like Kingdom Come scare people, it seems. It's like you have to have Superman in this, just, that um, he's gonna fix everything, that he can't go through anything, he can't lose anything. I mean, right now, they're having a debate of whether the Kents should be alive or dead. And
Oh, God.
honestly, to me,
Do you know why? Because, and this is the excuse I always use, they're like, well, Lois restores, keeps him connected to humanity. He was raised human by two humans.
right. I mean, well, we know that Lois fans, they love to undermine any other character to prop her up.
Hmm.
But the Kents, they raised him since he was what, around a baby, or
Hmm.
I say two,
Hmm.
whatever. But he was still like a toddler. He went through high school. he went through college and everything like that. Everything that they taught him, instilled in him, is still there as he is when he's an adult. So he doesn't need Lois to tell him what to do. He's not Omni-Man. He's not he didn't come to Earth as an adult and needs help adjusting. He grew
Yeah,
up
he's
here.
not Injustice Superman.
Yeah, he doesn't need to be coddled or anything like that. He doesn't need hand holding. He he's just he's just I want to say, like, when you try to put Lois as his main motivation, you you do get stories like Injustice. You do get this sort of like, you question Superman as a character, as a hero, because like, is he really a hero? Because there is a story um within Rebirth, and he basically like chooses Lois instead of saving um people drowning.
Hmm.
I think it was called The Drowned or something. That was his whole storyline. And it's
Hmm.
kind of like, so his only motivation to be a hero, that if Superman was real, if he had to choose between 100 people that was, you know, I guess hanging off a building or whatever, and Lois was one of those 100 people, he would let the other 99 fall, but only save her. That's pretty much what I get from Lois fans saying that, basically that she is all he needs and stuff like that. So yeah,
That's just wrong.
yeah. Um, so when we have stories where the Kents are dead, it shows that he is very much a man of his own, that he doesn't need his parents because they have taught him what he needed to know. But he also, within post crisis, um, with the Kents, he did run back home.
Hmm.
Like, you can do that. You can ask your parents for advice and everything like that. But the way post crisis pretty much set it up is like he had pretty much everything on a silver platter. He was basically like, he had everything, but he wanted to be preachy, holier than thou type. This hypocritical type hero that it's kind of like he didn't struggle much. And so it's kind of like, and that's pretty much why Batman is such a uh pretty much resonates with this younger generation. Yes, they are thinking Batman the billionaire with a bunch of gadgets too. They think like that. But Batman pretty much is consumed by his tragedy, and for some reason so many um connect more to that. But Superman actually has like the most tragic story, is that he lost his whole planet, but with the golden age of Superman, he still was like, his motivation was Krypton. That really should speak to a person of today's world. Um, with the Kents, I can go either way with them. You know, I write them sometimes. I do love Martha with her dynamic, that I set up with Diana and everything like that. But I don't think they're really needed.
Since you said
Um,
Martha,
Why did you say that name?
I mean,
I had to. I had to.
honestly, that scene, I I don't know. I really don't see the controversy. I mean, it's a funny. I really can't take it serious. It's supposed to be. I think it's supposed to be dramatic, but it's pretty funny to me. So yeah. So Martha. Every time I hear Martha, yeah, I pretty much think of that. Um,
You know what's kind of funny? My mom's name is Martha, so
oh my God, for real?
I have Martha
Oh,
and John, and I'm like, if you guys have named me Clark, I could have gotten this.
wow. Wow, that is so,
I'm
wow,
like,
that is,
that is an utter. That's all I was like, okay, I like being named Jared, but if you had named me Clark, that would have been so awesome.
I think actually, um, if I'm not well, it's Joseph.
Hmm.
It's actually Joseph, his middle name. But well, no, I think someone else
I'm gonna blow your
probably.
mind again. My dad's middle name is Joseph.
Oh my God,
I'm like,
you were
what? I'm literally Superman at this point.
pretty much, yeah, yeah. You can,
I'll take it.
yeah. That is very interesting, very cool. Um,
I find this out and I'm like, wait a second here.
Now you need to go see if you have like a rocket in your
Yeah, I was
backyard or
about to
something
say, I
like
may
that.
have to go ask him, did you discover me in a field somewhere?
Yeah, yeah. That wow, that is such a like a small world type moment. Is that you? You're
Ironically, Superman is my favorite superhero, so there you go.
right. Yeah, that's something that, and that's what that is, that you have to relate, that it's not only just names, but it's something about the character that you can relate to. But what we have now is not very much a relatable character, because so many of these arguments of Superman that he can't go through anything, as a mortal.
Exactly. And this is why and this is one of the reasons why I like the Snyder Superman movies so much, is because so here's the thing. And actually, Comic Storian had a fantastic video talk about Superman. I believe I sent this to you on Twitter. But basically, his thesis of the video is that, okay, to the outside world, Superman is a boring character. Obviously, Britt, you and I know otherwise, but to a
Right.
regular Joe Schmo, he looks like a boring character, particularly the way that real fans want him to be portrayed as the character that gets everything right. With Snyder, what he did is he was like, no, let's put him through a scenario scenarios where he makes mistakes but has to learn from them. Like, how does he get his no killing rule? Well, here's the thing: he would have a tremendous if you have a tremendously larger respect for life if you have been forced to take one. And that's why the whole Zod thing worked for me. And then you see, like in BVS, everyone's like suspicious of him. Everyone's doubting him, including Batman, who wants to murder him. And then, and yet again, the some of the best scenes that have ever been in a Superman movie, and there you go, Snyder, is when in BVS they're talking about there's a whole must there be a Superman scene, and throughout all these clips of the mainstream media sowing doubt and fear about Superman, he just keeps saving people. He's like saving a rocket from blowing up. He's saving a ship that's stuck in the Arctic. So what that shows is that no matter what your opinion of him, it's irrelevant. Superman is gonna keep saving people no matter what.
Yeah, but at the same time, you still have to show those conflicts, that
Yeah.
even with him, yeah, he isn't going to give up. And I think that the reason why Kingdom Come, he does give up, is because humanity just, it was a breaking point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but at the same time, at the end of the story, it still shows that he is the hero
Mm-hmm.
to turn things around and to bring a new light to, and a perspective to the world. And
Well,
of course, huh?
plus also remember, he is the one that gets the classic heroes out of retirement. As soon as he shows up, that's when all the classics start showing up. Because, and this is why I always say that, yeah, you could say Batman leads the Justice League, but Superman is the inspiration. All the other superheroes take their cues from him.
Yeah. And that is why Wonder Woman is, she wants him to see himself as that leader. She is always his moral compass. She is always the one that sees Superman as the inspiration that he's supposed to be. Um, and that's basically what her role is in Kingdom Come, is that she's this, one friend said she's a frustrated mother. That's basically how you can see her in Kingdom Come. And Superman is basically the frustrated father, because you have these young heroes that are just running wild, doing, well, heroes, anti-heroes, that are just making things worse. And basically the parents have to come in and straighten, this younger generation of kids out.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, they really do become parents to the even newer generation, to mold their child, or, well, they end up with like 5 kids, but their children, to change the world and help it grow in evolution, and evolve,
Mm-hmm.
and
100%.
yeah, and evolve. So after Kingdom Come, there's actually um a story within, again, Wonder Woman, because obviously we're still in the midst of the status quo,
Mm-hmm.
and it's only within her books.
Is this the one
Um,
where they basically have that shared dream and she's married to Superman?
yes,
There you
this is
go.
where, yes, this is Eric Luke's, his Trinity. This is when the Trinity first gets its name canonized,
Mm-hmm.
and the dream is Diana. Uh, she has world peace and everything. They fought together. She and Clark fall in love, and they get married and announce to Bruce that they're having a kid. It's basically, same thing as Kingdom Come. But at the end of the story, of course, it is Clark, or they have to realize that this isn't their reality, that their reality is that Clark is with Lois or whatever, and it breaks Diana's heart. Um, it is very sad. I really don't like, when the rest of the story, like the follow-ups to it, because it's really pretty much, a lot of times it's a bait and switch, but it's also pretty much kind of like making Clark really seem like an a-hole. Like,
Yeah, I can definitely detect that. I'm like, yeah, it's like, particularly with like Immortal Beloved, because I'm like, wait a second, as far as you know, Lois is dead. What are you talking about, dude?
it's like he first of all, for them to have a shared dream, is like, obviously he's dreaming of this too.
That's the other thing. It's like whenever Superman, you ever notice that whenever first off, you ever, and I said this when a buddy of mine and I reviewed the episode of Justice League that deals with the whole what do you get for the man who has everything in the mercy plans. Like, isn't it kind of interesting how whenever Superman goes into a dream state that shows his innermost desires, he's not with Lois
Yes, his dreams are either Diana, or his dreams are of Krypton.
or
Like, that
Lana?
is
So,
his.
but I'm like, it's
Yeah,
never Lois.
yeah. I mean, and then when those kind of stories are written, notice how every time there is a backtrack to show the quote unquote reality, that he's with Lois, and she's the only one, etc., like that. But no, your dream is showing your true desire, so we're supposed to basically ignore that you've had this whole
Yeah,
entire.
the whole point of the mercy plant is that as it feeds on you, it feeds you the dream of your inner heart's desire. I have to emphasize that so that you won't struggle. So
Yeah,
you're telling me he doesn't really want to be with Lois.
yeah. So I think a follow-up to that was, Diana was frustrated, and he comes to visit her. I think she actually, if I'm not mistaken, she actually like makes a robot or something that looks like him to beat up. And I
It's like
think,
Clark walks in. He's like, should I be concerned?
yeah, I don't think he saw it, but I know that that's something that actually did happen.
That
And
is awesome.
so she takes him to in within the Wonder Dome and to show his like inner desire. Mind you, the dream showed his inner desire or whatever, but now it's the Wonder Dome, and his supposed inner desire is Lois, and it's kind of like, oh wow, so you again with the bait and switch and changing everything, and at the end, it's kind of like they basically say they are still friends or whatever like that, but Diana is crying, and she's like, she really loves him, but because of the status quo, Clark has to basically do a whole 180 on his feelings for her. And that's the same thing they pretty much did in the animated um, movies too, is Clark pursued her, they were together, and then all of a sudden, because they're doing Death of Superman,
Oh, you mean
um,
off screen? I have to emphasize
yeah,
that again because because here's the thing. When I was watching that, it was like they released those little behind the scenes clips first before any of these animated movies come out. So I was watching them, and they started really hammering Clark and Lois, and I'm like, did I miss a movie somewhere where they broke up?
yeah, it all happened. Well, I think the producer did say that he wanted a movie like right before to basically do Action 600, that Clark and Diana breaks up like out of nowhere anyway
But
to lead to this, but it didn't happen.
But let me ask you: can you imagine if they did the Death of Superman, but did it with Superman and Wonder Woman as a couple instead of Superman and Lois? If they actually did something new.
But the thing is, with Death of Superman, you can't have him with Diana
Yeah.
because, first of all, she can. I mean, it's already contrived because she can beat Doomsday. I mean, she's like a goddess, so you have to pretty much nerf her, and he has to die. We've
Mm-hmm.
already seen that Diana can bring him back to life, and if they are being the powerhouses they are together, um,
Now,
Doomsday doesn't have.
what they could have done is done the move is instead of doing Death of Superman. Remember the arc in the New 52 called Super Doomed?
Yeah, they could have
They
done
could have
that.
done that.
Yeah, they. I think that the reason why is because um the producers at that time, and ironically, he's gone now. So it's like,
Mm-hmm. Jokes on you, dude.
his last hurrah of like the animated shows or whatever, they basically flopped. So it was pointless. But
Mm-hmm.
he was very much post crisis, very much the traditional pairings of Superman and Lois and Diana and Steve. So yeah, so it was basically forced that these two had to break up, but they couldn't actually um give a justified reason to break them up. So they had to do it off screen and then somehow put Clark and Lois together. And it really did come out of nowhere because the movie right before, Lois was basically like dragging Clark. She was belittling him. So how do you go from belittling him to
Yeah.
now you are supposedly in love and all that? No, that you know
You're at
that
the
is
point you're dating for long enough that you're willing to tell her who you really are. That's a lot. So in response to that producer, I give you this.
It fills out his clothes like lentils fill out a sandwich bag.
I love Zack Snyder. There you go. And this. Wait, one more.
Dweeb.
There you go.
wow.
But yeah, and by the way, he was talking about I think it was one of those, because when the Snyder Cut was coming out, he was doing promotion, and I think it was Kimmel or like no, it was the Colbert Show, and he was doing the Snyder Cut of the Colbert Show. So he was doing a Zack Snyder version of the Colbert Show.
Mm-hmm.
It was hilarious. I'll send you
Send me
the clip later. It's awesome. So then we have the 90s and beyond, more of this.
So right here we have like sort of, you have Elseworlds. You have now that the Trinity is established from Kingdom Come and Eric Luke's run, now is going into other Elseworlds. You have Red Sun, you have Dark Knight Strikes Again, but here with Frank Miller, of course, he has Superman and Wonder Woman together, and they have a daughter. Red Sun, I don't really. The story itself is problematic, but Clark and Diana are like a team going against Batman or whatever. You have Wagner's Trinity, and with this story, when Clark sees Diana, he says that she is the most magnificent woman he's ever seen.
There you go.
Yeah, and he says, I think he says like he apologizes and in his mind about Lois, like, but Diana is better, basically. And then you have Batman, when he sees Diana, he basically manhandles her and kisses her.
Of course.
And she punches him.
That's called a bat punch right there.
And but when she sees Clark, she is very much infatuated with him. It seemed like it. She likes him, and she says that, I don't know the scene particularly, but I know that Clark is like shielding her from something, from an explosion, and she says he protects me. He's a man, and so she really like is. Yeah, she's infatuated with that, it seems. So that's that story. But she does get treated very badly. I think she gets beat up by Bizarro.
Oh boy.
And Raj Al Ghul, I think. But yeah, that pretty much wasn't a good story. And this is why the Trinity is faulty, because with these stories now, they're trying to put them together, but Diana is still very much behind, and she's treated as just the stereotypical female in a story, is that she is pretty kind of used as a damsel in distress. She's used or portrayed pretty much as a sex object, or being ogled at or whatever. Then you have another Trinity. I think it was like a weekly series where they turn into gods or something like that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Speaking of that.
Yeah, I never read that. I just saw the panels of them turning into gods. I don't know what happened in that story, but I don't think it was. I think that the Trinity, it wasn't pretty much received well too much, or nobody really talks about it. Then the panel with their symbols together is JLA issue 0.
I love this series, and because it really shows that like they were the ones who established every iteration of the Justice League.
Yeah, this is trying to establish Diana as she is a founding member, or a founder of the JLA, and it muddles her history of Perez, though. Like every time they try to fix something, it messes up something else.
Well, that's
Then
the
you
DC
have
for you.
Yeah. Then you have the Batman and Superman, that story with Supergirl when they
Oh
go
yeah,
against
Apocalypse.
Darkseid. Yeah. Well, that story too is when Diana she kind of kidnaps Kara.
Oh yeah, she just shows up and goes, "Yeah, she's coming with me," and Superman's like, "Okay."
And even within the movie and the story, they act like they are divorced parents.
Yeah, I know, right? Isn't that funny? And I believe you did a Tonight chapter about that, but it's like,
Yes.
yeah, I'm like, what? Wait, did something happen in the past, Clark, that you want to tell Lois about, or not? Because Lois doesn't need to know.
Well, in the
Mhm,
story,
mhm.
in the comic, there is when he vaporizes all the doomsdays,
Yeah, that moment.
and
I love that moment.
yeah, and Diana comes to him and she hugs him, or and it does seem very intimate. But then of course in the movie they changed it to her just putting her hand on his shoulder, and I think of course that was produced by Bruce Timm. So
Now that explains it.
yeah,
That
so
certainly explains it.
yeah, so yeah, pretty much that's the end of post crisis
Mhm.
was and I think you also have like the Trinity still isn't that much established though,
No, not really.
because yeah, just because they have these team ups now, it still is isn't justifying their relationship, as a team.
And then we get arguably one of the best periods of DC, the New 52.
Now we have with the new 52, with all its faults and flaws, it did establish, again, going back to Kingdom Come and uh, Eric Luke's uh, Trinity, but pretty much done in a sense of Kingdom Come. They did have Batman and Superman still as friends, still well, they were frenemies or whatever,
They were
but they were
friends
more,
after Justice League, like after the first arc, because remember they were just meeting.
yeah, but they were still like it was still the world finest. It was still that was the set relationship, bromance, brotherhood, or whatever of Superman and Batman.
Mhm.
Then you have Superman and Wonder Woman with their. Um, the only thing that with New 52 I would have liked was that we pretty much got more moments of them realizing their feelings for each other. Like we did get their first meeting, but because of the 5 year gap of them
Yeah, I
working together.
do. And now that I think about it, yeah, it would have been nice to see like little fun moments, like maybe even flashbacks in the Superman and Wonder Woman book that deal with that. But by the way, I will riot if in special bonds at the wedding you don't have them go, "You're strong, I know," because that just writes itself. Yes,
I,
I will riot.
that is noted. That is noted.
Good. Just want to make sure. There you go.
That
But by
is
the way,
noted.
that cover, this is gonna be homaged in my comic. I'm just telling you right there.
I mean, when you see this, that cover is just so well. It gives you that line. Goes back to the line of Diana saying, "We are each other's shelter from the storm,"
Yeah, there you
and
go.
that is just it's just so powerful that they are in this storm or whatever, but in this embrace. And I really do like this cover. I mean,
Mhm.
Tony Daniels' art is just amazing
Well,
anyway.
yeah, there's Tony Daniel.
Yeah, so it's pretty much giving like this. Here's this romance, but this chaos, and it's also giving kind of a modern version of those very overdramatic romance novel covers too.
Oh yeah,
you
yeah,
don't
yeah, yeah.
you
I
don't
mean the one
really
where the
see
dude's always
anything.
shirtless.
Yeah, like
They should have
Fabio
done
or
that.
whatever.
That would have been a hilarious thing if one of the covers they did for that was like a parody of like the overly dramatic, like Superman's like shirtless, except he has like the S sigil that his suit comes out of, and she's like covered in a sheet, kind of, and they have the over dramatic text.
Well, they did do that in one cover. It was a variant cover for issue 3, and they are actually in space.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
remember that one.
yeah. There was a lot of covers actually that the artist put out. He showed sketches. There was one cover that I really wish they would have done. They were on top of the Daily Planet, and Diana is turned backwards. Like, her backside is facing Clark, and I guess his eyes are red and like on her backside.
Well,
And
we all know what he's doing with those eyes.
yeah, and it's kind of like, this is so fun and funny. Those covers should have been published. I
Or at
mean,
least put them in the back of the book as like, here's some alternate covers that we considered.
yeah. I mean, DC, they really do. They leave money on the table.
I'm
They
still
really do.
waiting for an omnibus of this.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's only 29 issues,
Or like
and
a hardcover that collects all of it. I may have to do a custom binds of that.
I mean, it seems so unfinished,
Mm-hmm.
like incomplete. Because 29 issues plus the published, unpublished 30-31 issue that's actually like before issue 28.
Or that alternate issue that they did. Remember when like they changed? I don't know if I love you anymore. Actually, they changed that from "I don't love you anymore."
Yeah, all of that. Well, of course, this is Tomasi's
Of
era
course, this is
of
Tomasi. I was about to
trying
say, Tomasi made us say that about the series.
to yeah, he really did. I mean, the total 180 of the whole series was just, I honestly, if Charles Soule will come back and finish his story, yeah, just come on, skip, skip volume, honestly, skip volume 3. I know
Just
that
do
it's so,
volumes 1 and 2, maybe, or just add on to that. What I think that he should do is that if he were to come back, because I think he has an exclusive contract from Marvel, but I think if he were to come back, just throw out 3, 4, and 5. Actually, you could keep 3 because I think 3 adds some interesting stuff, and then go from there. You're done. Just start from there.
yeah. But
But
I mean, but yeah, I would rather do that. Anything Tomasi, like you said, it's just a few moments or whatever. I just completely ignore. Um, just I really do. So just start from volume 1. 2, I mean, 2 is part of a crossover, and that's really what messed things up because
Oh yeah, volume. Because here's the thing. So when I covered volume 2 on the early episodes of Under Two Capes, I had to tell my co-host, "Okay, dude, I'm gonna be explaining 2 different stories right now because this is taking place in the exact same time as another event."
which I mean, if this story is supposed to just tell, I know you're supposed to have crossovers, but at the same time, it was just too early to put this book in a crossover.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let it breathe. And DC just didn't give this pairing nor the book a chance to really breathe. And honestly, I think that was on purpose because they did want to. I think that the success was unexpected. It was like, yeah, fans have talked about this pairing for a long time, wanting it and everything, but I don't think DC actually expected that
Nope.
fans were
No.
serious to actually support it.
Mm-hmm.
So when it was time, when seeing that support is like, oh, we actually have to be creative. We actually have to make this work. And instead of actually being creative, actually trying to make it work. They did the opposite and was, heavily trying to sabotage it. That's truly how I feel. Um, because there's just no way that if a book is pretty much selling, is a top seller, and for Soul to say that the sales weren't the problem of why he was off the book, and
Or why the book in general was canceled. So you're telling me, so the fans are telling you what they want because they're buying the book, and you say, no, where have we seen this before?
yeah, the DC EU.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. I say this every week. It continues to astound me how the what's the word? How the the incompetence mirrors in the comics and the movies.
yeah, I mean, WB has always had an issue, um, combined with trying to like have a synchronized movie verse plus with the comics and TV and everything like that. They aren't Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
The thing, Marvel, they have their faults and flaws too, but they were 10 years ahead, and they were able to really establish and set like the standard, or set this sort of, um, I guess, this way of how things should go. And with DC trying to catch up with them, they just fumbled everything. And especially when you try to keep, like, Marvel, I wouldn't say they experimented in the right ways too much, but they did. I give it 50-50. And they did change some dynamics that worked and some didn't. Like with Black Widow and Hulk, that was just weird.
Well, that's just
Um,
Joss Whedon.
yeah.
And wait,
Um,
because I said Joss Whedon.
Why did you say that name?
um, yeah, it was certain things that didn't quite work, but they did have Cap and Widow as a partnership, and that was within the comics. They did have um one, I think, Wanda and Vision being
They
together with,
did. And by the way, in the
yeah,
comics, Bucky and Widow were in a relationship when he took over as Cap.
yeah. So I mean, they did have the relationships that were actually in the comics. They did have it,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of, in a sense, celebrated it, and use their source material. This is what DC refuses to do. They refuse to use their source material, um, or even if it is used, they kind of twist it around or whatever, or the general audience isn't quite taken with it. Like, DC will only use their source material with Lois and Clark. Like, anything else after that, they like to twist it. But with them, it's kind of like this is like a set thing, and the general audience is not too much taking to this status quo. You have a cartoon that actually, um the ratings aren't that good, you know. um
Mm-hmm. Are you talking about a certain Adventures with Superman show?
yeah, it really, I mean, Cartoon Network um pretty much is a dead network now.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know, um Adult Swim, it has had its kind of stumble, if it doesn't have Rick and Morty or whatever. So with having this show, you would think that with how it was promoted, how Twitter really was promoting it. You would think that you would have millions in ratings, but you didn't. You had like cancellation pretty much like 200K. That is considered cancellation numbers, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then you have the CW
Oh
Superman
God.
and Lois show, and the ratings for that show when it first premiered was so low. Like Supergirl, Flash, and Arrow actually had much higher numbers. Even Black Lightning had much higher numbers. So, and the producer there said he felt like Superman, he wanted Superman and Batman or one or the other. And he basically said that they were the golden ticket to saving the network. Well, that network wasn't saved because with Superman, the family dynamic or whatever, that didn't really take as a wide audience. It's only a niche.
Mm-hmm.
Comics now. DC is so well. Whatever Dawn of DC is, they are doing a relaunch, doing shiny, number ones, and of course you have tons of variant covers.
Yeah.
So so you would think that that's successful, but honestly, that's just how it is with anything. You have a bunch of variant covers, you have all these pre-orders, but the actual sales of these books you have to really look at is the second issue onward, and that really tells the success of these books.
Mm-hmm.
With the movies, Superman, he's struggled with having a successful franchise for 40 years. After um, the first Superman movie, the second movie, it, you know, did fairly well. But then you have the third.
Yeah. We have Superman throwing a giant net around a bunch of nukes and throwing them into the sun. That's not going to have scientific implications.
Yeah, you have the when the story basically got lost somewhere, and it just basically nuked, Superman's franchise.
Nice. I
his
love
franchise.
that.
Yeah, it basically nuked his franchise. So then you have Superman Returns, and that was trying to rehash and the nostalgia of the 70s movies. Then you have Man of Steel, which is very much modern day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason why people didn't
Well, people did. I
it
just
it,
want the whole
it
narrative
did
about how Man of Steel was not successful is actually wrong, because if you look at articles at the time, they were saying that, speaking of revisionist history, by the way, that the DC has a massive hit on its hands.
it did. It really it honestly it did. But Superman fans are very nostalgic. They want the Superman that has the red trunks, that smiles,
Mm-hmm.
that save kittens. There's nothing wrong with that. I do find that charming from time to time. But I would want a Superman that actually goes through conflict, that
Mm-hmm.
actually has to grow as a hero. He has to work and earn his place as the hero. I
Mm-hmm.
don't I don't really find it relatable. I don't really find it aspirational, inspirational for people to just flock to Superman and just look at him as a savior. Um, and I just don't find that realistic. I would like the more realistic take of Superman needing to earn the public's trust.
Yeah,
That
exactly. And that's my problem with the Christopher Reeve movie, because yeah, overall it's pretty charming, it's nice. It loses me when he shows up for the first time and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, it's Superman!" And I'm like, at least with Snyder, he was like, "Here's what realistically happened." Everyone would be like, "Who the hell is this dude that has the powers of a god?"
Yeah, let people question it. You can have it 50-50 for and against, and that will be a whole storyline. And you know, execute it right. Don't go overboard. But yeah, these that I think that is what Marvel, before it became, kind of watered down now, that is what they succeeded in, is that their heroes earned and had difficulties
Mhm.
in the beginning. That's why Cap, he was so well received, because he's a Boy Scout too, but he still struggled.
And he went through quite the to use a DC pun, the identity crisis. So speaking
Yeah.
of identities, so now we're getting into the dynamics of how the different characters relate to each other.
Okay, so as I said earlier, Batman and Superman, they have their um rivalry, they have their frenemy moments, or they are friends, they have their bromance, brotherhood, or whatever like that. So they've had like tons of um team ups, tons of uh team up books and stuff like that. You've seen this grow and evolve, as this is why they are the world's finest. And the fact that Mark Waid actually has a book now, even though
It's good.
yeah, it's he doesn't like he actually admitted to not liking the status quo of the present day, but given that he can't change it or whatever like that, he
He
pretty
actually
much wants to
said
work around it.
he actually admitted that he hates the marriage to Lois.
Yeah, so he pretty much wants to work around it. So his book is set in the past. And it's like it works. And it is the highest selling Superman book, actually. Batman
Mhm.
has his solo book, but this team up book is the highest selling Superman book, because it is set, with the nostalgic. It does have Batman, but it isn't confined to the status quo. Um, so yeah, so this is why the world finest works,
Yeah.
because you see that these two male heroes, and of course it kind of feels like a boys club, you know with these two. And even though they don't actually, I've never realized that they don't actually go into Gotham that much, or Metropolis. It's kind of like very neutral.
Hmm.
Like, even with the, well, sometimes they do kind of belittle Superman sometimes for Batman, but it seems very much they are equals,
Hmm.
um as a dynamic.
Yeah, 100%. And I get see, and here's the thing. This is why, like, this is my one problem with the whole contingency plans thing, because they established that, like, at least of the Justice League, Superman is the one that Batman trusts the most. And then they're like, actually, I don't trust you all that much, Clark.
This contingency plans, you understand, but when he is secretive about them, if what really would make it okay is if Clark gives him like the kryptonite or whatever,
Which he
and
did.
and yeah, if he does it himself, if the entire league does this, agrees upon this. But if Bruce is just being paranoid and just hauls off, and does this on his own, yeah, it takes away that, it contradicts the whole "we are brothers, we are, I trust you because you are, you think of yourself as human or whatever, you don't really trust me. I mean, uh, Batman never trusts anyone,
Which is why
even if he
Wonderbat
says
doesn't
so.
work.
Right. And going on to that,
Mhm.
actually.
Actually, that's a great idea. So, Wonderbat, man, I am the king of transitions today.
So, with this dynamic, it is no dynamic.
Yeah, yeah.
So at first, pretty much they don't really have any type of important team ups throughout all the ages. It's been like one or two maybe in the Silver Age, but it really didn't. It wasn't anything to write home about, you know. Um, Wonder Woman started becoming close to Batman, well, trying to establish a friendship, is in the 18th letter written by Christopher Priest. Christopher Priest is also writing Superman Lost right now.
Mm-hmm.
And for the longest time, he has let it be known that he does not like Wonder Woman.
Oh,
Even in the
God.
Superman Lost, yeah, even in the Superman Lost book, he actually has Lois say that she doesn't like Diana, but you can pretty much tell that it is him, you know, kind of speaking through Lois as a character. And he says it's something about the bathing suit or whatever. But
Is that book canon?
no, I don't
Okay.
think so.
I was wondering about that.
I mean, even if so, Lois has always been jealous of Diana
Well,
and
yeah,
not liked
because
her.
that
So
Diana is tolerable as a character. That kind of helps.
yeah, so that's that. But within the 18th letter, uh, Diana, it was in DC Legends. Like I guess it went up I think to 50 issues or something like that. And this is issue 30, 30 through 32, I
Mm-hmm.
think. And Diana, she is blackmailed into, well, this guy wants her to sleep with him,
Oh boy.
and she, so yeah, so she's going through this whole thing, whatever, and Clark becomes jealous. He knows about it and everything, and he's telling her not to do it, and she asks him to trust her to that she is going to make the right decision on how to go about this. So he's at home and he's thinking of Diana, and it's just like a panel of him, like him and her kissing. I don't know if this is
Actually,
really, if
I
something
think you
actually,
have that here. Is it this?
yeah,
All right, here we go.
yeah. I don't know if it happened for real or if he like imagining it, but he
Well,
isn't
either
looking.
way, it doesn't look good for Lois. So,
Right. So he's like ignoring Martian Manhunter is talking to him and he's ignoring just everything and just thinking about Diana. So later on he goes, Diana has had her time with the guy, and the guy kisses her, and Clark, he goes to her place or whatever. He sees this red eyes, he's jealous. He's, you know, in this rage and all that kind of stuff. So he turns against Diana. And at the end of the story, he lets it be known, in a sense, that he feels like she did sleep with the guy and he's disappointed or whatever. And Diana is basically like, I trusted you, of everyone that I know, of a man that I trust and know, you should know better, you know, of me. And it, again, he breaks her heart. And it's like a lot of these stories of trying to change the dynamic to have Diana more closer to Batman is Clark has to break her heart.
mhm.
You know, he has to turn against her. So within at the end of the story, it is Batman who basically like gives Diana this sort of he gives her this rose to take. Oh, the man dies.
Mhm.
And he takes her this rose and basically gives her this. It's not really a pep talk, it's just a bunch of nothing. But yeah, he is a better speaker, you know, towards the situation for her and seems to understand her. And this story is done, which Christopher Priest actually admitted that he wanted to realign the dynamic between Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. And the realignment is always making Clark and Diana like antagonistic towards each other, distancing them, Clark breaking her heart for her to be close to Batman.
Oh
And
God.
yeah, Rucka did the same thing with Sacrifice. Diana, she killed Max Lord for Clark because he was going to, you know, basically go on a rampage. She did what she had to do, but Clark is, you know, all preachy and, you know, doing all that kind of stuff to her. She feels, well, Batman, he is judging her too, but still Rucka tried to still have her closer to Batman.
Which, again, this is one of the many occasions where I suddenly realize how much I don't like Greg Rucka as a writer. And let's not forget the worst example of this occasion, a Mr. Bruce Timm, who out of nowhere has Batman and Wonder Woman, has Wonder Woman wanting to be with Batman because he's the bad boy, and then adding on to, even despite Batman rejecting her, saying, "This isn't going to work out well, Princess, because I'm a rich kid with a lot of issues." And they keep teasing this, and I'm like, okay, what is his obsession with making Batman sleep with literally every woman?
Well, that's the thing. Bruce Timm, he wanted, it's kind of like a fanboy. It was, you know, that was the thing, especially with Batman being the bad boy. He is the guy with the $1 billion and the gadgets. You know, that spoke to the teenage boy fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with Bruce Timm, he did say that Superman and Wonder Woman, the reason why they couldn't be close was because it was the quarterback and cheerleader thing. Well, you have, if
What's wrong with
first
that,
you're,
first off? Barry, can I say, I find it interesting because I was having a debate with someone on Twitter and they brought up, well, Superman and Wonder Woman is just an office romance. And I'm like, does it make it any less valid?
but if you say an office romance, I mean, Clark and Lois is
Well, yeah, they're literally in
yeah.
an office. That's the other thing there. And it
Yeah,
started
that's
in
an
an
office
office. So
romance.
I'm going to use that next time. Thank you, Britt. Jeez. I see the way with this normally goes when I have like Twitter debates, people who are watching, is that if when I need to unleash holy hell on people, I just tag in Brit, and it's like essentially in one of those like wrestling tag team matches. I tag her in, and then she lays down the utter smackdown.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it's so contradictory, double standards, and you can really debunk all of this. Um, uh, Phil Jimenez, he had his first arc for Wonder Woman was Gods of Gotham. And within that story, he wanted the Bat Fam and the Wonder Fam to team up. He brought in Artemis, which Artemis wasn't even a part of the family, to match, you know, the families to match up. And pretty much that arc, I don't think really did so much. You had him also bring in Lois for the day in a life. And within that story, you have Diana assuring Lois that she and Clark are just friends, like they had their chance, or that Diana was young and like they've um settled their feelings for each other, and Lois is the only one that he wanted to be with. So yeah, you had these moments where um writers at that time to put her more with Batman, she had to um belittle her feelings or her dynamic with Clark. Rucka again, even with Rebirth, he had a Christmas story, and he tried to do like the compare and contrast of Diana and Bruce, and to say that Diana had like this inner darkness,
Oh
and
God.
yeah, and she had to like whatever she was doing, it was to set the darkness free with Bruce, and Bruce is kind of just like standing there in a sense of not being interested. And that's the thing, when Rucka writes that dynamic, Bruce seems so uninterested, and Diana's the one that's pushing. Diana's the one that's more like written as flirty, you know, and he's totally uninterested.
Well, it's
Then
like
you have,
also remember in the arc, in the very first arc of the Wonder Woman Rebirth run, where he puts her back with Steve Trevor. It's like all those things like, I've never forgotten about you. What about when you were dating Superman?
and even with that, she tells Steve, she says that I love you, but I only love you as a friend. And
Yeah,
then
exactly.
yeah, so yeah, it's a lot of these writers do a lot of revisionism, even if it's like a week later. Um, you also have Joe Kelly's JLA, where Joe Kelly is the one that wrote Immortal Beloved, and then he tried to put Diana with Bruce, and they have an issue, JLA 90, where it's like she goes into this simulator or whatever, and to see the scenarios of how their relationship would work, and pretty much it doesn't.
Hmm.
So they remain friends. I think that in one panel, I don't know the issue, but a character asks Diana about Clark, and she laughs or something like that, and it's kind of like, no, we're just friends, or some, it's things like that. But at the same time, in that same run, Clark is in a robe and she's hanging off him,
Yeah,
and
I remember that one. And I'm like, okay, so wait a second. So you're telling me they're just friends, and he's in a robe, partially open, mind you. She's hanging off of him. Her leg is almost like on him. So I'm like, see, here's the thing, and I showed this to a couple of my co-hosts the other day when that Wonder Woman 800 story came out, and it's like Jen Bartel's art, and you see the way they're holding on to each other. The artists clearly are trying to tell us something.
yeah, even with Wonder Woman 800, well, even actually with Conrad doing, I think it's Wonder Woman 793,
Mhm.
when they tried to have the reunion of the Trinity, um when Clark comes back from War World, you can see the dynamic of Clark and Diana being closer, and Bruce comes and he's the you know the spoil sport or whatever, but they have like this whole hugging session of trying to
Yes.
be friends. But a lot of the commenters on that was like trying to write them as friends, and Bruce how he was, um
There you
it
go.
seemed out of character. Yeah, that is, yeah.
I'm like, I'm sorry. I have female friends. When I hug them, I'm not holding them like this.
Yeah, but when you go to the Batman story, you see that Batman is actually like a little kid. He his whole dream is him as like this arrogant, mean, you know, very harsh person. But then he all of a sudden tries to say that Diana is his rock, which doesn't make sense to anything. and then he turns back into the young Bruce, and she hugs him like a mother would, you know.
Yeah, and I'm like, someone actually tried to use that as an example for Wonderbat, and I'm like, if you look at the context around the scene, I have concerns.
Yeah, he's a little boy. And then you have the when Tom King, when he rehashes Immortal Beloved,
I love
or
that one. It's literally, I know it's kind of, you know, it's hilarious, Britt. He even recreated the bait and switch.
yeah, but this time Diana, it wasn't mutual. It wasn't at all. She was the one that was playing the tempter. She was the one that was being flirty. It's like the dynamic between, well, the non-existent one, between Batman and Wonder Woman is very much Diana turning into like this flirty, femme fatale, temptress type. That's not her at all. Um, then you had like even Whedon, with
Oh God.
his redo of Justice League, he tried to do that too. Liam Sharp with his Brave and the Bold 6 issue miniseries. Oh, he was so mad that his series didn't do well in sales. He believed, coming off the Rebirth run with Rucka, that it would sell. He complained a lot on Twitter and basically said, like, when he had a spotlight at Comic Con, it was only like 15 people that came to his spotlight, and it was mostly his family. And he was getting a lot of that is what DC and the creatives need to understand. The support on Twitter does not translate to
No,
sales.
no. And you know what's hilarious, Britt? It's not like this is a new thing that we're learning that Twitter does not translate to sales. This has gone on for literally the existence of comics discussion on Twitter, because it's like when you deal with to a degree. I mean, let me put it this way: the internet and Twitter is a great thing for briefly gauging fan interest. It's a tool. It cannot be the tool, because when you're wholly dependent on that, then you deal with like the shippers, the pirators. When you deal with actual sales, that's why which is why hilarious, because I was in a debate with someone earlier and they said, well, it's very simplistic to consider sales. I'm like, DC is a business. Understand this. In our current economic system, DC is a business. Its focus, or what should be its focus, is making that green. Anything that makes that green should stay. Anything that doesn't gets kicked to the curb where it belongs.
Exactly. So, well, but in DC's case, it's anything that sells, they'll get rid of it. Anything that won't sell, or, basically keeping the average nostalgic or whatever, they'll keep.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, but when he was talking about the series, he when the Immortal Beloved redo with Tom King came out, it was a lot of backlash. And within that, Liam Sharp, he actually kind of like blamed SuperWonder fans for, like,
God.
he was getting hate mail, and he blamed the SuperWonder fans. It's like, no, you have
Well,
this
here's
fandom.
his first problem. He doesn't understand that in a creative space and on the internet, you're gonna get hate mail. I mean, we just did a podcast dealing with toxic fandom, and the biggest annoyance I have with these people is that they act like they shouldn't expect it on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, people hide behind the internet, and my 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 perspective of this is always, these people, if you were in front of me in person, you would not speak this way,
Nope.
you know. But because you are behind a computer or a phone, and we are probably miles apart, you know, anything like that. You feel like you can talk to this person that you have no idea what I look like, you have no idea who I am, my age, anything like that, but you feel like you can attack me. We are strangers, but you want to attack this stranger. And it's very odd to me, but that is what people do. And for him to basically want to victimize himself and because Super Wonder is like, they want to paint it as a controversial, taboo type thing that,
And by the way, to all those people that send death threats over fictional characters, I would like to refer to an age-old clip by an interesting director named Kevin Smith.
Okay, they're talking about fictional characters. Fictional characters.
There you go.
yeah, he, it felt more like he was trying to use that to say that Super Wonder fans, because he knew the whole thing of Super Wonder, the rebirth transition, how the relationship was talked about and everything. He tried to use that to sell his Batman and Wonder Woman comic, and and but it didn't sell. Of course, it it
Well,
flopped.
yeah, I'm sorry you picked a ship that's not that, despite what people will tell you on the internet, it's not that popular.
But it's also the fact that it was announced when Tom King did this, turning Diana into a temptress. Like, what did you expect? So
Yeah,
he,
I'm surprised a lot of the Wonder Woman fans didn't go, no, it's not about Superman and Wonder Woman. It's about the fact that you made Wonder Woman basically into Talia al Ghul, which that's actually what he did when you think about it.
yeah, even with Tom King, he actually had Talia really be. It was the same thing of her being beaten by Catwoman in a sword fight, and it was like Talia,
Against
she's in a,
Catwoman.
yeah, and also Liam, he also was going to have a scene for the Wonderbat shippers, and it was kind of like Bruce was going to try to um make a move on Diana, but he was drunk. So it was basically like
So that's hilarious. You have to get Bruce drunk in order to make a move on Wonder Woman.
but in a sense, it was kind of like a drunk like assault type thing.
Which, yeah, I'm surprised no one was. I'm glad that didn't come out because otherwise it would have been like, so you want Bruce to SA someone? Nice job.
Yeah, he pretty much took that out because of the backlash with the Tom King thing, but it was still the fact that this dynamic, that is pretty much all you think about is, in order for it to work or to have like this flirty type tension or whatever, Diana has to be written as like Talia or Selena, you know, or Bruce has to assault her, that's
Which, good
weird.
luck, because she's Wonder Woman, but
Yeah,
she will break
that's
you like a twig.
right. That's really, really weird. And it's no, when I see people say that that ship is better than Superman and Wonder Woman, I'm like, why? Because that does not respect Diana at all. Now, with Superman and Wonder Woman, the only problem that it has is the bait and switch, and pretty
Yes,
much
true.
turning Clark, like once he pursues Diana and he tells his true feelings with her, another writer comes in and like, no, that's not, true. He actually only loves Lois and stuff like that, and he breaks Diana's heart.
Which
And
is
it's kind of
why
like,
in the new 52 they're able to get around that, because the relationship with Wonder Woman was like a central tenet of the new 52, so they can't
yeah,
exactly like undo that.
right. I mean, that's pretty much why they had to kill him, and he even wanted to marry her, but they wanted to it showed how Tomasi tried to break them up, and it you really don't have a concrete justification to break them up. They can have their on and off thing, they can have their conflicts, they can even have breaks. It's kind of like
Mhm.
how I would do it, how I have done it, is
Hashtag
that
special bonds.
the world, yes, the world it's like they're conflicted with, yeah, they're conflicted with the world and their responsibilities, and they put that first. And when they put that first too much, then yeah, their relationship gets neglected and they have to take a break. And they make that sacrifice, but they can come back together, make it work or go a little bit slower or something like that. But trying to put it as it doesn't work because he's just supposed to have this love interest as Lois or something, or the using injustice as that they are will turn into tyrants or they're gods or
That's a very
something like that.
simplistic view of injustice. I'm like, you realize that the loss of Lois is not the only thing that pushed Superman over the edge, right?
Yeah, and then Diana's whole, um, which I still don't believe that's Diana, but her whole thing is because of Nazi Steve, like,
And like you said before, it doesn't work because she comes to man's world and meets these nice guys on the Justice League. You would think she would be like, okay, maybe that was just one bad experience.
yeah, but no, and I think also there's one other thing that's being forgotten, which I forgot, is that the Themyscira is also kind of harsh itself.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, it's a whole lot of elements within injustice that isn't just because, and they aren't really actually together. I mean, they are like, she's in love with him, but he is using her or whatever. So they aren't really even a couple there anyway. Um, in New 52 and all these other stories that they've been together in shows otherwise, is like every other story, whether they are friends with unresolved feelings or a couple, totally ignored for this one story that is just a video game too.
It
Yeah.
annoys the ever loving enemy. So tell me,
Well,
Britt. Now we've talked about the problems with the Trinity for about 2 hours. Now tell me, what makes the Trinity work?
okay, so with Superman and Wonder Woman, they are basically a couple. They are that's the dynamic of them. Batman and Superman is a brotherhood. Um, Batman and Wonder Woman still pretty much undefined. It's basically, I guess, just associates, or their only link basically is Superman. So you have your brother and you have well, in Kingdom Come, your wife, you know.
Mhm.
So you have the mother, Wonder Woman, the father, Superman, and the godfather, uncle as Batman. That's pretty much how the dynamic works. It's not a dynamic that has story, like complete story potential. It's just that ending of like what Kingdom Come had.
Mhm.
That's pretty much how to make it work. They aren't it isn't the it's pretty much DC can only use it as like an aesthetic, like imagery wise, but trying to have a story, a complete story, no, it just doesn't work. With all the research, yeah, it will never actually be what they are trying to present it to be.
True that. Now, next, I just want to conclude with a little more of a positive image. Unfortunately, it's a Tomasi image, but still, it's this. It's this. Because
Yeah,
this moment, I was just like, so And actually previous to this, this is like I think the second time they do this, and it's like in the beginning you have Clark go reflecting on the fact that he's dying, and he goes, you know what I'm gonna miss is like all these like small moments, like flying beside the woman I love and the woman that loves me, and it zooms in on their held hands, and I'm like, yeah, this is great.
Yeah, this moment, of course, as I'm saying, Tomasi does have some moments. Well, actually, Tomasi was the editor of Kingdom Come. So, yeah, he gets the dynamic when he wants to, but for whatever reason, he decided to totally screw it over. But this moment and the whole final days with them was very much how the Trinity should be written. Um, it's not much, it's not a whole story, but they do have moments. And that's pretty much how it should be. Um,
And that right there is why I always say sabotage what he did as Superman and Wonder Woman, because I know he knows how to write it well. That's the thing.
yeah, we have these little sprinkles here
It's
and
not
there.
like he wrote it poorly the entire time. I'm like, no, this is good.
Yeah, it's like it's right there, but I mean, I don't understand why would you sabotage a book
That was
that was
selling.
selling?
That was selling. That's the key. Even when he sabotaged it, it outsold like a lot of the BS books.
It outsold the Convergence book that was supposed to be like the highly anticipated,
You
bringing
mean
that.
the Superman Lois and Clark book?
Yeah,
My
it
problem with that, I just realized something. Okay, so I get that Superman that version of Superman didn't get involved with like when Darkseid first invaded because the Justice League was assembling. He's probably like, okay, that's fine. But the moment the Anti-Monitor shows up, and remember, this is the Superman that fought the Anti-Monitor and lost Supergirl to the Anti-Monitor. He remembers the damage this guy can do, and he just sits on his ass.
well, yeah, because this Superman only cares for his family. That's pretty much what the end of Post Crisis was that um he sits with Lois like while people are dying. So yeah, they just
I look at that. I love when people say that's real Superman. I'm like, is it though? Cue that Thor meme.
I mean, with Kingdom Come, that Superman, he shut himself off for 10 years. But the reason why was because of humanity turning their backs on him. And is like, they don't want me anymore. All of this chaos and stuff like that. You can handle it yourself. Which honestly, yeah, you see his perspective, and I would do the same. It's like I done sacrificed all this stuff for the world and everything like that, and that is how you do. It's like, well, yeah, I'm just gonna leave it be.
But I
Um,
guarantee you, if Darkseid invaded or Antimatter invaded, he would have been the first one out the door saying, "I got this."
that's true. But
But
this,
that's why, again, when they were like, "Okay, so oh my gosh, this is a Superman." Remember the one that sits. Again, I understand a lot of the threats that happened in the new 52. Well, actually, hang on. Going before that, how about when the crime syndicate invaded and said we killed the Justice League? You tell me there was another Superman here the entire time?
but that's why that is exactly why the story doesn't work,
I
because
know.
all this time he was just watching, but they would say that he was depowered and he was doing stuff like in the shadows.
Where
Yeah,
is that?
I don't. Yeah, I mean that is why Jargons do. He has had a backup in action recently, but that
Mm-hmm.
story was pretty much nonsense. It was I think John got kidnapped
Mm-hmm.
and went in space or something like that. It says, okay, so he went to space. He wasn't on Earth. So all of this happened and it seems so secluded. Like it if you are going to give Jargon a sequel to the book, he decided to make it seem so small, like it was in a bottled, like
A
a
bottle
bottled
city,
city.
pun intended.
Yeah, but it was just kind of like a bottled farm, and it's
It
just
doesn't work.
them.
And that's the thing. I'm like, it would be one thing if like he tried to do something, if like he flew against a crime syndicate and they beat him up and like he retreated. That would be one thing because at least he tried. No, he didn't. Particularly, again, the anti-monitor is where I really like take issue because he knows how powerful the anti-monitor is. It took like every Superman from the multiverse to take down, and I'm like, and you didn't do anything.
No,
Because remember, at
no,
that point, he had his powers back.
yeah. Even with having your powers back and no one, like especially Batman, no one detected you.
Well,
That
yeah, Batman. You tell me Amanda Waller didn't know.
Yeah, that is why Convergence, Rebirth, or whatever is so contrived, and that is why DC's continuing right now is so messed up because it's a whole bunch of contradictions. You can't fit these stories of rebirth anywhere. It's revisionism, especially for John, to make sense, for even for the marriage to make sense. I mean, they did have to, when people say that the Superman and Wonder Woman failed, so they had to retcon it because, yeah, that's why they retconned it. It's like, no. The only reason why they retconned it was first because of petty writers, their preference, and then trying to make this marriage fit to where it's always been. Like Jargon's whole his glossed over history for Superman is basically like he met Lois, he married her early, and then they had John to make sense. So it's basically like he never had a relationship in between that, you know. And with Diana too, her story or her history is all the way back to World War II, but then Rucka had her in an illusion for 10 years or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they a lot of this stuff is so it just doesn't work. Just like the Trinity. It's a great concept in a sense of acknowledging these three heroes that are known around the world, that they are symbols, inspirations in their own right. Wonder Woman is supposed to be the symbol of empowerment for females. She is the mother. Superman is the hero, the first hero, supposed to be inspiring to um, males to be, not so much as macho, but be strong. And um, with Superman and Wonder Woman are two outsiders. So they represent um, different diversity in culture. And then you have Batman, which is mostly the teenage boy, fantasy with the gadgets and everything like that. But because of his tragedy of losing his parents, he became a hero. Yes, he is defined by fear, but it's still something about Batman, especially with his dynamic with Robin, though. Robin as a kid, and I do like that dynamic because in one story, Batman does say that the reason why he takes on Robin and, these kids is because he doesn't want any other child to be like him. So, yeah, he is an inspiration in his own right.
Yeah,
That is the
yeah, and that's why I like Batman too, because it's like everyone has encountered trauma, and Batman's the whole thing about how you can turn your trauma into a strength.
yeah. So, yeah, individually they work um only as a separate dynamic of pretty much duos, But as a trio, no. The Trinity, with I'm very surprised, but with going through the history, it is not what it seems. And I really don't know if anybody could make it work as DC wants it to be. Like I said, the only thing that you can have is stories like Kingdom Come or Without the Heartbreak, you know, um, Eric Luke's Trinity or New 52.
Yeah, but the good part is, hey, there's potential that they could have like a writer that comes up and really establish, because there could be a fantastic series that really puts this concept and actually makes it work. Because, but by all like logic, it should work because you're dealing with the three most popular superheroes, the three that everyone looks to for guidance in the universe, and the three that, as in the case of the Brad Meltzer run, have influenced the formation of the Justice League throughout their entire history. So by all intents and purposes, this whole concept of these three heroes together should work. It's just astounding. And by Britt, if you're talking, I can't hear you.
Well, it
okay, there you go.
should work as long as you respect the dynamics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good. You're kind of going in and out.
I said if you could, if they respect the already established relationship.
And 100%. That's when that can work. So, on that note, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. So we're gonna start wrapping it up. So, Britt, do you have any stories you want to tease?
Like, you can't
realign
the Trinity. It is super. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're kind of going in and out.
We're having technical difficulties.
It always happens. It's all good. It's all good. But yeah,
now
so
go
ahead. Oh, okay. She probably is gonna leave and come back in. So in the meantime, so what's gonna happen for next week's I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and in terms of what's going on in the future, in terms of Comics League, this Wednesday I'm having on Drew from Comics Elite to discuss his new book, and then in terms of what's the word? In terms of other shows, so on Friday I'm bringing on Ty the Art Guy to talk about his book that I read and I really enjoyed. This Saturday for movie night, we're talking about Casper the Friendly Ghost, and then what else? Under Two Capes, I'm still figuring out what I want to do for the next episode, so bear in mind on that. And then in terms of the next episode of this show, I will let you guys know what the next episode is going to be. In the meantime, share this out. Drop any information, any episode discussion topics that you guys would like to see, because I know Britt and I would love to see it if she were in here, because again, technical difficulties. She should be loading back in now. And in terms okay, so here she is. All right, so can you hear me? Are you good?
Okay, we're back.
Okay, now we're back. So
okay.
Continue on with what you're saying about how to make the Trinity work.
Okay, so with the Trinity, you have to not try to realign
Hmm.
the dynamics.
Hmm.
Respect how what's established. Superman and Batman have their dynamic. Superman and Wonder Woman have their dynamic. Batman and Wonder Woman are just connected with Superman, and that's just how it is.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Um,
Sweet. So, Britt, did you have any stories you want to tease for the audience?
yes, I have three one shots. One I completed earlier today. Um, that will be uploaded. I actually sent you a sneak peek of
I saw it.
something.
It's really good. I like it.
Yeah. And then two more that I'm finishing editing, and that should be uploaded at least later on, within the week.
Sweet. Can't wait. Because I always look forward to all those next uploads because they're awesome. And
Thank you.
I brought up anything. I brought up my stuff. So on that note, everyone, stay heroic. Hope you guys enjoy this episode and drop below any suggestions in terms of topics or your thoughts on the Trinity. If you disagree with us, keep it civil. And sorry, Wonderbat fans, the truth hurts, doesn't it? So I will leave you with words from the Dark Knight himself.
Batman doesn't do shit.